All right. So hello, my name is Jess McLaughlin. I am a um, co-director of the First Gen Initiative at Temple. And today we have Bob Westerman, one of our transfer students. He is going to be doing a tutorial of some Microsoft applications.
All right. Thanks, Jess, for that introduction. So I'm Bob, transferred to Temple this semester, spring 2022. I've been working for a little bit for a company that uses Microsoft applications all the time, and we train people basically on how to use them, but also troubleshoot any issues and things like that. I like it. It's a nice job, and it's nice because I can go and do things like this to kind of help some people go through figuring out how to do constantly use things like signatures and emails, table of contents, headers and footers on papers and page numbers and things like that. So with that, figure we'll just jump right into it. So let me go ahead and so I'm going to shut my video off for now.
So save some bandwidth.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Okay. So the first thing I figured we'd go over is how to create an email signature in Outlook Online, as well as also turning on or off the focused inbox. So I'll explain what that is when we get to that portion. So in order to create a signature in Outlook Online, what you're going to want to do is from any one of these folders over here, you can go up to this little gear right here. This is the settings for Outlook Online. Just go ahead and click on that. And then in here are some quick things that you can do. Change the theme. This is just going to kind of change the fonts, like the colors and the banners up here and things like that. Dark mode, things like that. Toggling that on and off just kind of, again, changes the colors and things like that. This right here is the focused inbox. So if you notice in here, there's only one option, just says inbox. If I turn this on, I get two options. I get focused and I get other. So what happens is Microsoft will use certain keywords and also their own methods of determining what emails will go into focused and into other. I typically don't like this format just because it is quite easy to miss an email this way. Say from your advisor or someone important that doesn't use a specific keyword. So like in here, like all the ones from the bookstore that I have are all here. And what if I had to pick up textbooks? Is it going to go here or is it going to go here? What if I miss that my textbooks are ready and then the class starts? Now I don't have that book. So I typically leave it toggled off like that. So I'll get every email. And that's the gist of focused inbox. So to create a signature though, what you'll do is you'll choose this option where it says view all Outlook settings. And open it up and you'll come into here and it'll be this little window. You're gonna want to go to compose and reply. And now I've already created a signature, but we'll go through the process of creating another one just for demonstration purposes. So we'll hit new signature. If you haven't created one before, it'll just look like this. And we'll just go ahead and we'll type in example signature. And we'll go down here and we'll say, this is an example of a signature in Outlook Online. And then what you'll do is you'll want to hit save down here. And the reason you want to hit save is so that in this drop-down menu, I've also created another one as an example, you'll be able to select it. And the reason that's important is because when you come down here and you choose this drop-down menu, you'll see the example signature is here. So we can go ahead and say that. So now what will happen, and you want to set it for both, what'll happen is anytime now when you create a new email message or you reply to an email or forward something, your signature will be automatically set inside of there. This is something that is very helpful if, like me, sometimes you forget to share your contact information with someone. Or let's say you typically, you may forget to put your student ID in an email to a professor or your advisor. So with that, I have mine set to just school signature, which has my information. Then you'll go ahead and hit save, set this back, and then that's it. That's how you go and create the signature. You can click out this X, and we'll just open up a new email. So you can see here the new email is up, and the signature is automatically populated in there. And if anybody has any questions, this is my phone number. You can shoot me a text or give me a call, and if you have any questions about any of this, I'm more than happy to help. So with that, we'll go ahead and discard that. And that's basically it for Outlook Online. There's really not much to this, this version of Outlook. So what we'll do, go ahead and close that. And next, we're going to talk about Microsoft Excel. So this is a very personalized spreadsheet that we have here. It's for the car I'm actually currently working on, just for a side project. So what we're going to do, this is just to kind of show some examples of sorting and finding things in Excel, as well as formatting the cells in terms of their borders, any fill colors, things like that, centering text, merging and centering data, things like that. So what we'll do is we're actually going to go over to this other one that has not been touched yet. So what you'll do in order to format it is you'll want to select one cell, and we want to format the whole table. So what we do is on the Home tab, you can either choose Format as a Table or Format on its own. Formatting on its own can get a little difficult. I typically use Format as Table, just because if you are formatting multiple cells at once, generally it's because the information is all related and you're going to want to display it in a uniform way. So what we'll do is you just click on this and you get boundless options. You get normal. There's some other options you can choose. This one's labeled as good, or I'm sorry, bad, good, things like that. I usually use normal, and then I'll typically pick just like one thing, and you can see like that. You can also choose individual ones as well. Warning text, things like that. Let's see what else. So next thing we'll go over is a sort. So again, you'll want to highlight the data that you want to sort. We can just choose this. We'll choose the numbers. And again, from the Home tab, you've got this option for sort and filter. You'll go ahead and click this drop-down menu. And typically when you're working with numbers, you're really going to go either smallest to largest or largest to smallest. And what's nice is that Excel will typically default to these options when you go ahead and open them. So if we choose smallest to largest, continue with the current selection, and you'll see it automatically sorts it. And if you choose words, you'll see the options change from A to Z or Z to A. Again, you can do a custom sort. Continue. Typically with these, it's not something that's going to be used. Even in my field, we try to stay away from these just because the data can get very chaotic. And then at that point, that's usually when somebody's called us. So we leave that as is, and we just go A to Z. This is just telling us that this information and this information won't be sorted in the same way, which is fine for these example purposes. We'll choose sort, and you'll see now we've got B, G, L, S, T, T, and W. That's basically the sort. That's the long and short of the sort function. Find and select, you'll just use, so if we wanted to do an example of this, we can copy, paste. Actually, there's a faster way to do this. So to autofill data, if anyone is unaware of that, when you highlight cells in Excel, you'll notice that there's a border around it, but there's one particular spot in the bottom right-hand corner. It's a bigger dot than the rest. And what that is that's called the fill handle. So what you do, select the data that you want. Your mouse will change to a black crosshair, and you can just start moving down. And what that does is it will autofill everything the way it is. Like I said, sometimes it can get a little hectic. So what we'll do is somewhere in here, change this to the word test. We'll go up here. And now we'll use the find feature to find the word test. So this is generally what it will look like. It'll ask you what you want to find within the sheet. You can change it to the workbook, which is any and all tabs that are open down here. You can either search by row or by column. I typically leave it by row. Can be a little easier that way. And you want to make sure, for at least for me, that in the formulas as well, that it will search in there. So what we'll do is search for test, and we hit find next. And it'll automatically come to the cell that test is in. And what we can also do from this window, which is nice, is we can use the replace function. And what the replace function does is we take what we wanted to find, which in this example is test, and we can replace it with the word replaced. And now you have two options. You can either replace what you found in just the one cell, or replace all of them. So if I had 10 examples of the word test, I wanted to insert the word replaced instead of test, I would hit replace all. But since we only have the one, we'll hit replace. And then that's it. And then if we hit find next, you'll see it cannot find the data you're searching for, meaning there are no more instances of the word test in this Excel sheet. We'll go ahead and close that. Now let's talk about a little bit more formatting. So with this, I also like, if I'm highlighting a certain range, starting from the top left and working my way down. That's a personal preference. You don't have to. This last section is for borders. And the way you find that is, again, under the Home tab in this area. So you have your font style, font size, a button to slightly increase or decrease the font, your text styles, bold, italics, underlined. And then we come here. And this is border. I use the drop-down menu and I get all these different options. I can choose a bottom border, top, left, right, all the way around, outside, thicker. And there's different ways to set your borders. And I strongly encourage opening up an Excel sheet and just filling in some random data into these cells and playing around with these, and seeing what you like the look of and what you don't. I typically use a thick box border if I'm going to, and you can also change the line color of them. Now the default is to automatic, which is typically going to be a black border, but you can make it any color you want. You can use standard, theme colors. More colors will actually give you the option to go ahead and use a gradient to find a different color that you like specifically. It's a nice feature. And again, I use it to complement themes that I set the tables for that may or may not be available to me in the standard range. For example, just use black. And with this, when you do that, you'll notice that the cursor is now a pencil, and I can draw my border for each. That's one way to do it. Typically for me, let's go ahead and undo these changes. Typically for me, I like to go and set the borders by default. Nice thick border all around there, as well as there. And that's the basic formats for doing some simple table designs, as well as sorting and finding data and in an Excel sheet and in an Excel workbook. And actually, before we move on, let's go ahead and set this instead of sheet to workbook, because there is a word on the other page that is not on this one, the word supercharger. You'll see it changes the sheet from example 2 to example, and it found the word. This feature is nice because if you have multiple sheets in a workbook, let's say you've got 30 sheets, which is something I've seen people have it, on a daily basis at my job. If somebody's looking for one person's word, one person's name, like if someone's looking for my name, they're not going to go through 30 sheets to find my name when it's listed one time. So they would use this find what within workbook and choose my name. And then they would be able to find me a lot faster and a lot easier than going through and saying, okay, I've got an example, I've got 700 lines of data. You're not going to want to scroll through 700 lines of data to try to find one thing. And that's what's so nice about this find feature. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is the way that this is formatted. And in here, when you format something as a table like this is, which again, I just went to format as table and just chose a style. It could be anyone you'd like. Do that for all we want, which gives you a nice alternating color pattern. These drop-down menus, when you choose them, you get a sort and filter option. This is another way of doing what we did earlier using the sort and filter options. So what we can do in the filter, let's say I wanted to see just the clutch. I unselect everything, and I just choose what I want. And that's it. You want to make sure that the filter is set to auto apply. If it's not, what will happen is you can change it and you'll see, well, I want to see brakes, but why is drive shaft still showing? Because I didn't apply the filter. Now when I do, everything changes over. And you'll notice the auto apply being on or off by whether or not you can actually click this button. If you can, it's not on. Some people like it on, some people don't. Clearing the filter is just as easy. Whatever filter you have, click clear, and then it'll automatically select everything again. And that's all I have for Excel. So now with that, and by the way, I'm working with a Mac. These features are entirely the same in a Windows PC or a Mac OS device. They're not going to change. The only thing that really changes is really the appearance of the icons. That's the only thing I've ever noticed is different. The features are all the same. So just exit that full screen. We don't have to save those changes. Now we're going to talk about Microsoft Word, probably the thing that every college student across the country and across the world at some point will have to use multiple times. For Word, we're going to go over a few things: paragraph settings, table of contents, page numbers, headers and footers. I'm also going to throw in footnotes, because that's just something that I know I've had to use quite often. And if you don't know how to do it, it can be a little confusing. So the way you create a table of contents is kind of built off of other things that you would do in Excel, in Word, not Excel. So you'll notice we have an introduction, strengths, and then underneath it, it's indented a little bit for management team, strong balance sheet, things like that. This is just an example file that my fiance actually had written for a class of hers. And here we have the page numbers. So what you'll want to do is in a document, you're going to want to go to the Insert tab, and quite a lot of things are found under here. For our examples, we're just going to be focusing on this group right here. Page number. First and foremost, one of the more important things you want to make sure you include when you have a table of contents. So if we click the drop-down menu, we choose page number. Now, we get this little window that pops up, and it asks us, what position do you want to put the footnote in? You can put it at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. That's it. Those are your choices. I typically choose the bottom of the page just because I like the way that looks more. You can also change the alignment, left, center, right, inside and outside. Again, I choose right just because we're not reading this in a book format. So I like reading just like most of us are used to, left to right, and always ending with the footnote for me, or the page number on the right-hand lower corner, just feels like a more cohesive layout for that. But It's entirely a personal preference. All right, now, headers. We click this drop-down arrow right here. We get many different kinds. This isn't meant to be overwhelming. It's just a different style of formats. Typically, I just use blank, which is this one here, and just ask you to type. Typically, I'll put my name and a class that I'm in and the section number. And then to get out of it, just double click in the body of your message or in your Word document. And the footer or the header is automatically saved there. And you'll notice if you click on it once, my cursor is moving down here, but I'm not doing anything up here. To enter the header again, you'll have to double click it. Now, what's nice and a good thing to remember is that the header and a footer will never add to your word count, and it will also not change the format of the page itself. What I mean by that is it's not going to take, if you've got like one line here, it's not going to say, oh, well, there's a header now, so I'm going to have to move everything down an inch. It's not. Your header stays in the margins of your paper. The footer is the same way. And you'll notice you can only when you click in here once, the cursor will move in here. That happens if you have a header. Once you enter the header, the footer will automatically pop up on every page. And you can get into the footer the same way you can with a header by double clicking into it. This is a shortcut that I typically use if I don't particularly feel like going from my document, going to the insert tab, then going to footer and choosing something from this list. I do this shortcut because I always choose this blank option. If you choose a different option or you don't like the way that it looks with just like a name here, like I have, feel free. It's entirely a personal preference, as well as also what your teacher would prefer. This is how my teachers like it, and then that's just been what's working for me. And same thing. And then it'll stay there. We'll just undo that. Now, before you create a table of contents, what is important is that you need to have headings set up in your document. If you don't have headings set up, Word is going to get very confused as to what it thinks you want your sections to be. The way you do this is highlight the text, and on the Home tab, this section here is called the Styles section. Now, what this does is it applies certain properties to the text that you have selected. So normal, no spacing, things like that. This isn't how you would set up a table of contents. What you would want to do is, if this word introduction is going to be its own section, you want to select heading 1. That is a top level heading, meaning when you go up here, you have introduction, and if there were any other points inside that section, they would be underneath it, indented, like how you see under strengths, management team, strong balance sheet, low production cost, things like that. The way you get this type of formatting is go to your section, apply a top level heading, heading 1, and then find your next title, management team. Select heading 2. And that's going to cause Word to say, okay, so in this document, Bob wants strengths to be a top level heading, and management team is a subsection of this strengths portion of the document. If I wanted to make this strong balance sheet and continued sales growth a subsection of management team, I would highlight it and choose heading 3. And what you'll notice is very small differences between the heading styles. Strengths is quite large. Management team, it's a little bit smaller. Strong balance sheet, continued sales growth is a little smaller than that as well. Heading 4 would be even smaller. And what this will do is create it creates different things inside that will what's the word, that will reflect in your table of contents. Heading 4s, as you see, don't really pop up. It's the lowest level heading, so Word deems it as something that's really not that important, that you would need a quick link to it. So if you click on anything in the table of contents, pulls you right to it. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and change these back. The option to, oh no, wrong one, heading 2. The option to select 2 different lines at the same time, like you just saw me do, is to highlight one line, and then if you're on a Windows PC, to press and hold the Control key. If you're on a Mac, it would be the Command key. So press and hold that, and then just left click once and drag to highlight. And that's how you can select multiple lines at the same time if they're not next to each other. I find that this is a very helpful tip if, like for this document, you have to apply multiple heading styles to different subsections. It's a lot easier to do it this way than to go through and highlight one, then click up here, highlight one, click up here. It's a way to make a very repetitive task go a lot quicker. And what you do is anytime you make a change, like how we did, you go up to your table of contents, click inside it, and it's listed here, and you have a little drop-down arrow. When you click it, you have an option to update the table, remove the table, take a photo, scan documents, things like that. You'll hit update table, and then it wants to know, select one of the following options. Do you want to just update the page numbers, or do you want to update the entire thing? I never only update the page numbers. I always update the entire table. This is something that I have found is a lot more helpful in keeping everything organized and making sure that your table of contents will properly reflect your flow through the document. And you'll see now that we've assigned it a level 2 heading, low production cost and low production risk comes back because Word sees it as an important section. Now, paragraph settings. Another one that we all, I'm sure, have toggled with at some point to try to meet a page length requirement. The way you do it, highlight your text. Then I right click on it. You'll choose paragraph. And then we have the window I'm sure quite a lot of us are familiar with. We'll go from top to bottom. So under general, we have alignment. You click this, these arrows, you've got justified, right, left, and centered. This is just how the text is going to appear on the page. And what's nice is Word actually gives you a little preview window down here of what the text will look like. So if we hit right align, we can see down here it changes. Now this bottom line shot all the way over here. This is a good way to see what this will look like once you apply these changes. Outline level. I typically don't mess with this, especially if I don't have an outline made. It's not always the best idea because you can, if you have a paragraph like this outline level can get a little crazy and make the document look like nothing at all like you want it to. So I typically leave this as body text whenever you're working with just a plain paragraph. Indentation. What this does is shift the text left and right. So you'll notice down here as I increase this, it will indent this paragraph, the entire thing, however many inches I say to, whether it's an inch, half an inch, 2 inches. It's best practice, I have found, to leave these at 0. Unless you don't like the way something is automatically indented, or you want to possibly insert like an image or something, I would leave these as is at 0. It'll keep your document looking uniform as well as professional. Right indent will do the same thing, but just this direction. Okay, next is spacing. Before and after spacing. The before spacing, if you notice, as we increase it, changes the amount of space in between the previous paragraph and the one that we have selected. Toggling with this does create some interesting results, to say the least. Before spacing, I usually leave it 0 and let my line spacing take care of that. Again, it's just a personal preference, but from what I have noticed in the corporate world and everything that I've had at work, this never gets changed because it can make things look really unprofessional and like you're trying to reach a page limit. Most places are going to be able to spot that a mile away, so it's not a good idea. It's not worth sacrificing a grade or having someone talk to you about, hey, why did you do this, for something as simple as trying to make a page limit. After spacing, same deal. It's tough to see, but it's the spacing after it. It'll do the same thing as the before. Change this back to 10, which it was. The last thing I want to talk about for paragraph settings is line spacing. We've all had a teacher say at some point, I want 250 words, or 250 word paper, single spaced. This is a more intense way to get to that. But what that'll do is it'll put just one line of spacing, meaning you hit the enter key and it goes a set amount of inches on the ruler down. 1.5 lines will go a line and a little bit more. Double, we all know, it's 2 lines. Most of the time, the at least, exactly, and multiple are not used. If they are chosen, you can set it where you would want it to go. So if you choose multiple, this defaulted to 3. But if I wanted to do 3.5 or 4, it increments in denominations of half. It's the easiest for Word to use if you go in denominations of half. And it also makes things a little easier for you to control as well. But typically we all work with either 1.5 or double spacing. The quick way to get to most of what I just went through is on the Home tab. In this section, we have all of our text manipulation functions. And in here, we have more of our paragraph ones. So we have left align, center align, right align, justified. And this button here is our spacing. If you click the drop-down menu, this is how we're presented with it. Instead of words, it's numbers. So you have 1, 1.15, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. If you choose line spacing options, you'll see you get the paragraph window again. Typically, if we're just trying to do it quick, this option's enough. That's what most of us will use. And that's typically what I use a lot at my job and what I've seen people use just from the calls that we handle. You also have your indentations here. I typically avoid these buttons unless absolutely necessary. All right, and with that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen for now. All right, and are there any questions that anyone has for me at this time?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I use like the OneDrive web app, I guess. I don't know
Okay.
how else to describe it. Is that the correct terminology?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So the OneDrive web app, and I share a lot of documents to like collaboratively work on with other people. Is there a way to create a table of contents in the web app version of Word?
All right, that's a good question. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna reshare my screen. Lauren, do you have any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just to answer your question, there is a way to do it. And what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Definitely was. Okay. And are you able to see the web page I have up, or is it just my desktop background?
I can see it.
Okay. So what you'll do is you'll notice that this is similar to our page that we had open earlier. So the difference between the web apps and the desktop apps is the web applications are a little bit more restrictive on what you are capable of doing. There aren't as many functions But it is possible to use it and do a lot of the things that you can still do in a desktop application. So, for example, Jess, your question was about a table of contents. So just like in the desktop version, we'll go to references and you'll see there's a table of contents section and you can insert a table of contents. I don't have anything in this one, but you'll notice normally it would come up in here. Let's get a document uploaded here. Let's see. I don't know what this is going to be. It's just the original one. But yeah, it'll be the same process of going through and hitting references, going in, choosing a table of contents. And from the reference tab, you can also update or remove the table of contents. Typically, if you're just doing it on the fly, you would go through the little tab that comes up at the top of the table of contents. And again, your insert tab, you can do headers and footers, page numbers, things like that. There's not as many, like I said, there's not as many features in the web versions. It's a little bit of a stripped down version. But it is usable for a lot of the things that most students would need to use it for, like a table of contents, inserting footnotes, things like that. So it's a good question. Definitely appreciate it. Are there any other questions?
I don't have any more.
Okay. So one thing I will say is to get to the web versions of these applications, the website that we typically use at my job is portal.office.com. And when you go there, it won't do it for me because I had already chosen. But if you have more than one account that it recognizes, it will prompt you to choose an account that you would like to sign into. And it uses that account actually to figure out what documents and everything it's going to display to you. I had my account for work pop up. So if I had chosen that, we'd be able to see all the documents that I have from work, as well as the applications. And you can use Excel, PowerPoint, what's called Sway, Teams, OneNote. This is your OneDrive, like you were mentioning earlier, Jess. You can also access Outlook this way. And if you click it, we see our email. It'll automatically sign you in to whatever Outlook account you had open or signed in as on this page. And it'll do that for any application that you open. So Excel, if I do a blank workbook, it's going to have me in here as my Temple account. Now in this find and sort, you'd have to hover over them unless you know what exactly it looks like, but you still have your sort and filter, your search functions, as well as your formatting and your styles and things like that. And that's pretty much the long and short of what the main application, the three big applications that we get a lot of questions with at work, as well as a lot of the big application uses for most college students. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen. And yeah, so with that, I just wanted to say it's been great being able to share some of this knowledge with everybody. Hopefully, we can all take something away from it and, use some of these things to kind of make our lives a little easier. I know the table of contents is a great use that I've done in thesis papers and research papers and things like that. That, you're going on 30 pages and it's just like, I got to scroll through all of this to get to that last section and I'm on page 1. It's nice because you can just click it and then it's a little bit faster. You can also go to specific sections instead of saying like, oh, what page was that on? It's a lot smoother of a transition. And the formatting of data in Excel by using the styles and everything, it's nice because we've all seen somebody presenting a data in Excel and it's just a white spreadsheet and it's like, this is just hard to look at. It makes the data a lot more presentable and a lot more professional looking using these things. And it's simple things that a lot of people don't know, and it can be used not just in school, but also in the professional world to set yourself apart from the crowd. It's a really good thing to know. There's constantly calls that we get about Excel and Word, and a lot of them are formatting questions. How do I make this data presentable, to someone? Like we get aesthetics questions, and it's one of those things like we're honest with them. It's like, hey, this is just my opinion, but maybe try this, and we work with them and try to figure out like what style works for the idea that they're going with. One group we work with is the EPA. They were talking about costs for this green initiative that they were trying to roll out. The customer calls in and says, hey, can I have some help working with formatting data in an Excel sheet? I'm like, yeah. And we're talking about it, and I was like, what's it about? And when they told me what it was, I was like, I have a great idea. Let me see if you're on board. And we applied a green style like I showed in a demonstration. And it's one of those things, it's a nice way to make, especially a presentation of data, much more cohesive and appealing to your audience. And it's a great way to, like I said, set yourself above the typical presentation that most people would do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Bob. This has been really helpful.
Of course, I'm glad. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, at the beginning of the recording was my cell number. You can go ahead and just shoot me a text or just let me know your name and what it's in regards to. So I don't just think it's a spam number. And we'll see what we can do about helping out with whatever Microsoft Office related questions that you have, and make it a lot more approachable. And I know it can definitely be daunting.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you and have a good night, guys.
All right, have a good night.
Thanks so much.